Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Podcast. My name is Tom, and I'm really happy you're here today. In this episode, we're going to talk about something very important when learning English: introducing yourself. This is one of the first and most useful skills you can learn in any language. When you know how to introduce yourself, you can start conversations with new people, make friends, and feel more confident speaking English. Think about the last time you met someone new. Maybe it was at work, at school, in a class, or even online. Usually, the first thing people do is introduce themselves. They say their name, they share a little information, and they start conversation. This simple moment is very important because it creates the first impression. A clear and friendly introduction helps people feel comfortable talking to you. Many English learners feel nervous when they introduce themselves. They worry about making mistakes or forgetting words. But the truth is that introductions in English are usually simple. You don't need complicated grammar or advanced vocabulary. Most introductions use basic sentences that are easy to learn and easy to remember. Let's start with the most important part of an introduction: your name. When you meet someone for the first time, you usually say your name. In English, there are a few very common ways to do this. The most popular sentence is, "Hi, my name is." Another common sentence is, "Hello, I'm." Both of these sentences are natural and polite. For example, you might say, "Hi, my name is Tom." Or you might say, "Hello, I'm Tom." Both of these sentences mean the same thing. They are friendly and easy to understand. After you say your name, people often respond by saying their name too. Then the conversation begins. Sometimes people also add a polite phrase like "nice to meet you." This is a very common expression in English conversations. When you meet someone for the first time, saying "nice to meet you" shows politeness and friendliness. For example, a simple introduction could be, "Hi, my name is Anna. Nice to meet you." Or, "Hello, I'm Daniel. It's nice to meet you." You might notice that native speakers sometimes say "it's great to meet you" or "good to meet you." These phrases all mean almost the same thing. They are just different ways to show that you are happy to meet someone. Now let's think about pronunciation for a moment. When you introduce yourself, try to speak clearly and calmly. You don't need to speak fast. Speaking slowly and clearly actually makes your English easier to understand. Many learners think they must speak very quickly to sound fluent, but that's not true. Confidence and clarity are much more important than speed. Another helpful tip is to smile when you introduce yourself. Even if you're nervous, a smile helps create a friendly atmosphere. People usually respond positively when someone smiles and speaks politely. Now, let's imagine a simple situation. Imagine you are at a language class and you meet another student. You might say something like this: "Hi, my name is Maria. Nice to meet you." The other person might say, "Y Maria, y Malux. Nice to meet you too." This is a short conversation, but it's a perfect example of a basic introduction. These simple sentences are used every day in English-speaking environments. Let's try another situation. Imagine you join an online meeting for the first time. Maybe it's a class, a workshop, or a team meeting at work. When it's your turn to speak, you might say something like, "Hello, everyone. My name is David. I'm happy to be here." This is a slightly longer introduction, but it's still simple and natural. Adding a small sentence like, "I'm happy to be here," makes your introduction sound friendly and positive. Sometimes introductions happen in more casual situations. For example, imagine you meet someone at a party or a social event. In that case, the introduction might be even simpler. You could say, im chiriz. Short introductions like this are very common in informal conversations. English speakers often prefer short and relaxed introductions instead of long formal ones. Now let's talk about something important. When you introduce yourself, it's helpful to practice your introduction before you need it. If you think about what you want to say in advance, you'll feel more confident. Many learners feel nervous because they try to create sentences in their mind at the same time they are speaking. But if you practice your introduction before, the words come much more easily. Here is a simple practice exercise you could try right now. Pause this podcast for a moment and say your introduction out loud. You can start with a simple sentence like, "Hi, my name is," then say your name clearly. After that, you can add a polite phrase like, "Nice to meet you." Practicing out loud is very important. When you speak out loud, your brain and your mouth work together. This helps you remember words and improves your pronunciation. If you practice this simple introduction many times, it will become automatic. Then, when you meet someone new, you won't need to think about what to say. The words will come naturally. Another useful idea is to record yourself introducing yourself. You can use your phone or computer to make a short recording. Then listen to your recording and notice how you sound. Are you speaking clearly? Are you speaking too fast? Are the words easy to understand? Listening to yourself can feel strange at first, but it's a very powerful learning tool. Many language learners improve quickly when they start recording and listening to their own voice. Now let's practice a slightly longer introduction together. Imagine you are meeting someone for the first time at a conference or a language exchange event. You might say something like this. "Hello, my name is Tom. It's nice to meet you. I'm really happy to be here today." This introduction has 3 parts. First, you say your name. Second, you say nice to meet you. Third, you add a small friendly sentence. Even though this introduction is simple, it already sounds natural and confident. Remember something important. Introductions are not tests. You don't need to impress people with perfect grammar or big vocabulary. The goal is simply to communicate and start conversation. Simple English is often the best English. Before we finish this first block of the episode, I want you to practice one more time. Take a moment and think about your own introduction. Say it slowly and clearly. Imagine you're meeting someone for the first time. You might say something like, "Hi, my name is Sophia. Nice to meet you." Or maybe, "Hello, I'm Ahmet. It's great to meet you." Every time you practice this, you become a little more confident. Now we're going to add another very common piece of information when people introduce themselves. We're going to talk about where you are from and where you live. When people meet someone new, one of the most common questions they ask is, "Where are you from?" This question is very simple, but it helps people learn a lot about each other. When you answer this question, you're talking about your country or your hometown. The easiest way to answer this question is with a sentence like, "I'm from," then you add the name of your country or city. For example, you might say, "I'm from Spain," or you might say, "I'm from Brazil." This short sentence is very clear and very common in English conversations. Sometimes people want to give a little more information. Instead of only saying the country, they also mention their city. For example, someone might say, "I'm from Italy. I'm from a city called Milan." Another person might say, "I'm from Japan. I grew up in Tokyo." Adding these details helps people imagine your life and your background. You might also want to talk about the place where you live now. For many people, the place they live today is different from the place where they were born. Maybe you moved for work, for school, or for another reason. In this situation, you can explain both places. For example, you might say, I'm from Mexico, but I live in Canada now. This sentence shows both your original country and your current home. It also tells a small story about your life. Here is another example. I'm from Turkey, but I live in Germany. Or someone might say, I'm from Poland, but I live in London. These sentences are very common when people introduce themselves in international environments. Sometimes people add a little more information about their move. For example, they might say how long they have lived in their new city or country. You could say something like, I'm from Brazil, but I live in Portugal now. I moved here 3 years ago. This sentence gives more context and makes your introduction more interesting. Talking about where you live can also help start new conversations. When people hear where you are from, they often become curious. They might ask questions about your culture, your city, or your language. For example, someone might ask, do you like living there? Or they might say, I've always wanted to visit your country. Because of this, talking about your home is a great way to continue a conversation naturally. It helps people find topics to talk about together. You can also describe your city or town a little bit when introducing yourself. For example, you could say, I live in a small town near the mountains. Or maybe, I live in a big city. It's very busy but exciting. These extra details help the listener imagine your environment. Here is an example of a longer introduction that includes your name and where you live. Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm from Argentina, but I live in Spain now. I moved here about 2 years ago. This introduction sounds natural and friendly. It gives 3 pieces of information: your name, your country, and your current home. Let's look at another example. Hello, I'm Sada. I'm from Australia, and I live in Sydney. It's a beautiful city near the ocean. This introduction also includes a small description of the city. It gives the listener a clearer picture of Sarah's life. Now let's talk about something important. When you introduce yourself, you don't need to give a lot of details. Sometimes a short introduction is perfect. For example, if someone simply asks you where you are from, you can just say, I'm from France. That is already a good answer. However, if you want to continue the conversation, you can add more information. For example, I'm from France, but I live in Belgium now. Or, I'm from France. I grew up in a small town in the south. Both options are correct. The choice depends on the situation and how much you want to share. Now I want you to do a small listening and speaking exercise. Think about your own situation. Ask yourself 2 questions. Where are you from? Where do you live now? Try to answer these questions out loud. For example, you might say, I'm from Thailand and I live in Bangkok. Or maybe, I'm from Ukraine, but I live in Poland now. Speaking these sentences out loud is very helpful. When you speak, your brain becomes more comfortable with the language. Even if you're practicing alone, it still helps a lot. Another useful idea is to practice different versions of your introduction. Sometimes you might want to give a short answer, and sometimes you might want to give a longer one. For example, a short answer could be, I'm from Italy. A longer answer could be, I'm from Italy, but I live in Germany now. I moved here for work. Practicing both versions will help you feel ready for different situations. Now, let's imagine a real-life scenario. Imagine you're joining an international English class for the first time. The teacher asks everyone to introduce themselves. When it is your turn, you might say something like this. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm from Poland, but I live in Warsaw now. It's nice to meet you all. This is a simple introduction, but it sounds confident and friendly. Let's imagine another situation. Maybe you're traveling and you meet someone in a hostel or at a cafe. The conversation might start like this. Mark. I'm from Canada, but I'm traveling in Europe right now. This introduction is short, but it tells a small story about the person. Before we finish this block, I want you to practice one more time. Think about your own introduction and say it slowly and clearly. You might say something like, Hi, my name is Elena. I'm from Spain, but I live in Madrid. Or, Hello, I'm Ahmed. I'm from Egypt, and I live in Cairo. The more you repeat these sentences, the easier they will become. Now we're going to add another very common part of an introduction, talking about your job, your studies, or what you do in your daily life. When people meet for the first time, one of the most common questions they ask is, What do you do? This question is asking about your job, your profession, or your main activity. Sometimes it means your career, and sometimes it simply means how you spend most of your time. For many people, the answer to this question is their job. If you work, you can answer with a very simple sentence. A common structure in English is I'm a followed by your profession. For example, you could say, I'm a teacher, or I'm a doctor. You could also say, I'm an engineer, I'm a driver, I'm a designer, or I'm a chef. These sentences are short, but they clearly explain what you do. Native speakers often use this structure when introducing themselves. Another common way to talk about your job is to say, I work as a, this means almost the same thing as I'm a, but it focuses more on your work activity. For example, you might say, I work as a teacher, or I work as a software developer. Both forms are correct and natural. Sometimes people also say where they work. For example, I work as a teacher at a school, or I work as a designer at a marketing company. Adding the place of work gives more information and helps people understand your daily life better. Now let's talk about another situation. Maybe you are a student. In that case, your introduction will be a little different. Instead of talking about a job, you talk about your studies. You might say, I'm a student, or I'm studying engineering. Another example is, I'm studying business at university. If you want to give a little more information, you can also say where you study. For example, I'm a student at a university in Paris. Or, I study computer science at a college in Berlin. These sentences are very common in introductions, especially in academic environments. There are also situations where someone is not working or studying at the moment. For example, maybe someone is taking a break from work, looking for a new job, or focusing on learning a language. In that case, there are still many ways to introduce yourself. Someone might say, right now, I'm learning English, or I'm currently looking for a job. Another possibility is, I'm taking some time to travel. These sentences explain what you're doing in your life at the moment. Talking about your job or studies helps people understand your daily routine. It also gives them ideas for questions they can ask you. For example, if you say you are a teacher, someone might ask, what subject do you teach? If you say you are a designer, someone might ask, what kind of design do you do? This is one of the reasons introductions are important. They don't just give information, they also help start conversations. Now, let's build a longer introduction using the things we have learned so far. Imagine you're meeting someone at a professional event or a networking meeting. You might say something like this: "Hello, my name is Daniel. I'm from Argentina, but I live in Spain now. I work as a software developer for a technology company." This introduction includes three important pieces of information. First, the speaker says their name. Second, they explain where they are from and where they live. Third, they talk about their job. Let's look at another example. Im Sada. I'm from Australia and I live in Sydney. I'm a graphic designer. This introduction is shorter, but it still sounds natural and complete. Now imagine a student introducing themselves in a class. They might say something like this: "Hello, my name is Alex. I'm from Poland and I'm a university student. I'm studying business." This introduction clearly explains the person's situation. It's simple but very effective. Let's add a little more detail to make the introduction more interesting. Someone might say, I Marco. I'm from Italy, but I live in Germany now. I work as a chef in a restaurant." With just a few sentences, the listener learns a lot about Marco's life. Now I'd like you to practice again. Think about your own situation and try to answer this question. What do you do? If you have a job, you might say something like, "I'm a teacher," or "I work as an engineer." If you are a student, you might say, "I'm a student," or "I'm studying medicine." If you're learning English or focusing on personal projects, you could say, "Right now, I'm learning English." Try saying your sentence out loud. Speaking out loud is one of the best ways to build confidence in a new language. You can also practice combining different parts of your introduction. For example, you might say, "Hi, my name is Maria. I'm from Spain and I live in Barcelona. I work as a marketing manager." Or, "Hello, I'm Ahmed. I'm from Egypt, but I live in Dubai now. I'm a university student." When you combine these sentences, your introduction becomes clearer and more complete. Another helpful tip is to practice several different versions of your introduction. Sometimes you will need a short introduction, and sometimes you will want to say a little more. For example, a short introduction might be, Im Daniel. I'm a teacher." A longer introduction could be, Im Daniel. I'm from Brazil, but I live in Portugal now. I work as an English teacher." Both versions are useful in different situations. Before we finish this block, let's imagine another real-life situation. Imagine you're attending a language exchange event. People are meeting each other and practicing English together. When it is your turn to speak, you might say something like this: "Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia. I'm from Ukraine, but I live in Poland now. I work as a designer." This introduction sounds natural, confident, and friendly. Remember, you don't need perfect grammar or complicated sentences to introduce yourself well. Simple English is often the best English. In the previous parts, we talked about saying your name, explaining where you are from, talking about where you live, and describing your job or your studies. Now we're going to add another very important part of a personal introduction: your hobbies and interests. Talking about hobbies helps people understand you better. When you share the things you enjoy, your introduction becomes more personal and more interesting. It also makes it easier to start a real conversation because people often like to talk about activities they enjoy. When you talk about hobbies in English, there are a few simple sentence patterns that people use very often. One of the most common expressions is, "In my free time, I like," then you add an activity. For example, you might say, "In my free time, I like reading books." Another example is, in my free time, I like watching movies. This structure is very simple and very useful. You can use it with many different hobbies. Another common expression is I enjoy. For example, you might say, I enjoy cooking, or I enjoy playing football. This sentence sounds natural and friendly. You can also use I like. This is one of the simplest ways to talk about interests. For example, I like music, or I like traveling. Simple sentences like these are used every day in English conversations. Now let's look at some common hobbies people often mention when they introduce themselves. Many people say they like watching movies or TV series. Someone might say, in my free time, I like watching movies and relaxing. Another person might say, I enjoy watching TV series and documentaries. Reading is another popular hobby. Someone might say, I like reading books, or I enjoy reading novels. Some people also like listening to audiobooks or podcasts. Sport are also very common hobbies. Many people enjoy activities like football, basketball, running, cycling, or swimming. For example, someone might say, in my free time, I like playing football with my friends. Another person might say, I enjoy running in the park. Music is another hobby that many people talk about. Someone might say, I like listening to music. Another person might say, I enjoy playing the guitar. Music is often an easy topic for conversation because many people love it. Travel is another common interest people mention in introductions. Someone might say, I love traveling and exploring new places, or I enjoy visiting different countries. Talking about travel can often lead to interesting conversations about different cultures and experiences. Now, let's combine hobbies with the other parts of an introduction. Imagine someone introducing themselves at a language exchange meeting. They might say something like this. Hello, my name is David. I'm from Canada, but I live in Spain now. I work as a graphic designer. In my free time, I like photography and traveling. This introduction sounds natural and complete. The listener learns several things about David: his name, his country, where he lives, his job, and what he likes to do in his free time. Let's look at another example. Maria. I'm from Mexico, and I live in Mexico City. I'm a university student. In my free time, I enjoy reading and listening to music. This introduction also feels personal and friendly. The hobbies help show a little bit of Maria's personality. You can also mention more than one hobby if you want to make your introduction longer. For example, someone might say, in my free time, I like cooking, watching movies, and spending time with my family. This sentence describes several activities and gives a clearer picture of how the person spends their time. Sometimes people also mention hobbies they're learning or hobbies they want to start. For example, someone might say, recently, I started learning photography. Another person might say, I want to learn how to play the piano. Talking about hobbies you want to try in the future can make your introduction even more interesting. Now let's practice a little bit. Think about your own hobbies. Ask yourself these questions. What do you like to do in your free time? What activities make you happy? What do you enjoy doing on weekends? Try to answer with a simple sentence. For example, you might say, in my free time, I like reading books, or I enjoy playing basketball. If you want to say more, you can add another activity. For example, in my free time, I like reading books and watching movies, or I enjoy playing football and listening to music. Saying these sentences out loud is very helpful. When you practice speaking, you train your brain to use English naturally. Another useful exercise is to create two versions of your hobby description, a short version and a longer version. A short version might be, I like music. A longer version could be, in my free time, I like listening to music and going to concerts. Both versions are useful depending on the situation. Now imagine another real-life situation. You meet someone new at a social event. After introducing yourself and talking about where you are from, the conversation continues. You might say something like, by the way, in my free time, I like hiking and taking photos. This sentence helps move the conversation forward and invites the other person to share their interests too. Often the other person will respond with something like, oh, I like hiking too, or that sounds interesting. This is how small conversations begin and grow naturally. Before we finish this block, let's create one more example introduction that includes hobbies. Hello, my name is Alex. I'm from Poland, but I live in Germany now. I work as an engineer. In my free time, I enjoy cycling and watching movies. This introduction sounds natural, relaxed, and friendly. It includes several pieces of information without being too complicated. Remember, hobbies make your introduction more personal. They help people see who you are, not just what you do. Now we will add another very useful part to your introduction, talking about your goals and explaining why you're learning English. When people meet in international environments, especially in language classes, online communities, or professional events, it is very common to talk about goals. Goals help others understand your motivation and what you want to achieve in the future. When you share your goals, people often feel inspired or interested in your story. Let's start with a simple question that people often ask. Why are you learning English? Many English learners hear this question when they join a class or meet other students. The answer can be very simple. One common structure is, I'm learning English because. For example, you might say, I'm learning English because I want to travel. Many people learn English because they want to visit other countries and communicate with people from different cultures. English is often used as an international language, so it can be very helpful when traveling. Another common answer is, I'm learning English for my job. Many companies use English as a working language, especially international companies. People often study English to communicate with colleagues, clients, or partners from other countries. Some learners say, I'm learning English because I want to study abroad. Many universities around the world offer programs in English. If someone wants to study in another country, learning English becomes very important. Other people learn English simply because they enjoy learning languages. Someone might say, I'm learning English because I like languages and cultures. This answer shows curiosity and interest in the world. You can also combine several reasons in one introduction. For example, someone might say, I'm learning English because I want to travel and meet people from different countries. This sentence explains both the goal and the motivation. Talking about your goals also helps people understand your personality. It shows what you're interested in and what you hope to achieve in the future. Now let's look at some examples of introductions that include goals. Here is a simple example. Hello, my name is Laura. I'm from Italy, but I live in France now. I work as a teacher. In my free time, I enjoy reading and traveling. I'm learning English because I want to travel more and communicate with people from different countries. This introduction gives a full picture of Laura's life. We learn her name, her country, her job, her hobbies, and her goal. Let's look at another example. I'm Daniel. I'm from Brazil, and I live in Sao Paulo. I work in marketing. In my free time, I like watching movies and listening to music. I'm learning English because I want to improve my career. In this introduction, Daniel explains that English is important for his professional future. Sometimes people also talk about their dreams when introducing themselves. A dream is a goal you hope to achieve in the future. For example, someone might say, "My dream is to travel around the world." Another person might say, "One day I want to work in an international company." These sentences make your introduction more interesting and more personal. You can also talk about the progress you're making in English. For example, you might say, "I've been learning English for 1 year." Or, "I'm still a beginner, but I practice every day." These sentences show honesty and motivation. Now let's practice building a longer introduction that includes your goals. Imagine you're introducing yourself in an English class for the first time. You might say something like this. "Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia. I'm from Spain, and I live in Madrid. I'm a university student. In my free time, I like reading and traveling. I'm learning English because I want to study abroad in the future." This introduction sounds natural, clear, and friendly. Let's imagine another situation. Maybe you are joining an international online community where people learn languages together. Your introduction might sound like this. "Hi, everyone. I'm Ahmet. I'm from Egypt, but I live in Dubai now. I work as an engineer. In my free time, I enjoy playing football and watching movies. I'm learning English because I want to work on international projects." This introduction gives a complete picture of Ahmed's life and goals. Now I'd like you to do another small practice exercise. Think about your own goals. Ask yourself, why are you learning English? What do you want to do in the future? Maybe you want to travel more. Maybe you want a better job. Maybe you want to study abroad. Or maybe you simply enjoy learning languages. Try saying your goal out loud in English. For example, "I'm learning English because I want to travel." Or, "I'm learning English because I want to improve my career." If you want, you can combine your goals with the other parts of your introduction. For example, "Hi, my name is Elena. I'm from Ukraine, but I live in Poland now. I work as a designer. In my free time, I enjoy photography. I'm learning English because I want to work with international clients." This introduction sounds clear and confident. Another helpful tip is to keep your goals simple and honest. You don't need to create a perfect or impressive answer. The goal is simply to share something real about your motivation. Before we finish this block, let's review the new part we added to your introduction. After saying your name, your country, your job, and your hobbies, you can also explain why you're learning English or what your goals are. This makes your introduction richer and more meaningful. It also gives people more topics to talk about with you. In the final part of this episode, we will put everything together. We will practice full introductions, learn how to sound more confident, and talk about how to adapt your introduction for different situations. We talked about saying your name, telling where you are from, explaining where you live now, describing your job or studies, sharing your hobbies, and also talking about your goals. Now the goal is simple. We want to connect all these parts into one natural introduction. When you combine these elements, you can easily speak about yourself for 30 seconds or even 1 minute. This is very useful in many real situations. For example, you may introduce yourself in an English class. You may meet new colleagues at work. You may join an online language community. You may also meet people while traveling. In all these situations, a simple and clear introduction helps start conversation. Let's start by reviewing the structure we learned today. First, you usually say your name. A simple sentence works perfectly. You can say, "Hi, my name is Alex." Or you can say, "Hello, I'm Alex." Both versions are natural and friendly. After that, you can say where you are from. For example, "I'm from Poland," or "I'm from Mexico." This is often one of the first things people share when they meet someone new. Next, you could talk about where you live now. Sometimes people live in the same place where they were born, but sometimes they live somewhere different. For example, "I'm from Brazil, but I live in Portugal now." This gives people more information about your life. After that, it is common to talk about your work or your studies. You might say, "I work as a designer," or "I'm a university student." Work and study are big parts of our daily life, so people often share this information when introducing themselves. Then you can talk about your hobbies and interests. This part is great because it makes your introduction more personal and interesting. You might say, "In my free time, I like reading and listening to music," or "I enjoy sports and traveling." Finally, you can explain why you're learning English or what your goals are. For example, "I'm learning English because I want to travel more," or "I'm learning English because I want a better job." Now let's listen to a full example that combines all these parts. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm from Argentina, but I live in Spain now. I work as a graphic designer. In my free time, I enjoy photography and watching movies. I'm learning English because I want to work with international companies and travel more. This introduction sounds natural and complete. It is simple, but it tells us many things about Daniel. Let's try another example. Maria. I'm from Portugal, and I live in Lisbon. I'm a university student studying business. In my free time, I like reading books and going to the gym. I'm learning English because I want to study abroad in the future. Again, this introduction is clear and easy to understand. It follows the same structure we practiced during this episode. One important tip when introducing yourself is to speak slowly and clearly. Many English learners worry about making mistakes. But remember, communication is more important than perfection. People usually appreciate when someone tries to speak their language. Another helpful tip is to practice your introduction many times. You can practice at home, in front of a mirror, or while walking. You can also record your voice on your phone and listen to yourself. This helps you notice your pronunciation and improve your confidence. You can also try writing your introduction in a notebook. Writing helps organize your thoughts. After writing it, try saying it out loud without reading. This is a great exercise for speaking practice. Another useful idea is to create two versions of your introduction, one short version and one longer version. The short version can be 2 or 3 sentences. The longer version can include your hobbies and your goals. For example, a short version might sound like this. Im Anna. I'm from Germany, and I work as a nurse. I'm learning English for my job. A longer version might sound like this. Hello, my name is Anna. I'm from Germany, and I live in Berlin. I work as a nurse in a hospital. In my free time, I enjoy cooking and running. I'm learning English because I want to work abroad one day. Both versions are useful in different situations. Before we finish today's episode, I want you to do one small challenge. After this podcast ends, try to introduce yourself in English. Use the structure we practiced today. Start with your name, then say where you are from. Talk about where you live now. Explain your job or your studies. Share one or two hobbies. And finally, say why you're learning English. Your introduction does not need to be perfect. The important thing is to practice speaking and feel more comfortable using English. Remember, every time you introduce yourself in English, you're improving your speaking skills. Small steps lead to big progress. Thank you for listening to this episode of the English Podcast. Keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep speaking English.